E te whare, e tū mai nei, te hau ki Tūranga, tēnā koe. Rongo whakaata ngā tikai pauhau, rau rangatira mā. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Can I begin by thanking you very much for the generous welcome to the rongo whakaata taonga Te Hau ki Tūranga. This whare is a demonstration of the rich cultural achievements of rongo whakaata. I pay tribute to you, to your tipuna, for the immense contribution that you have made to the culture of our land. It is fitting that we are here today to initial the deed of settlement between rongo whakaata and the Crown here at Te Hau ki Tūranga. The house was taken in 1867 and is a powerful symbol of the injustices experienced by rongo whakaata at the hands of the Crown. In this settlement, the Crown will apologise for some of the most grievous treaty breaches it has ever committed anywhere in the land. The house was confiscated during negotiations by which the Crown were deciding how much rongo whakaata land it would confiscate to punish rongo whakaata for their role in fighting, which was started by the Crown unjustly in 1865. Uncle Darcy, Peter Tupra, Naki, Lovey Morgan, Haney Sutherland. Those were our kaumātuas talking about Te Hau ki Tūranga. It was an awakening for us to know that's our whare. We put it down on paper that Te Hau ki Tūranga is ours. It was going through that court case then, which upset everybody. But we came through, and I'm glad to know that it's written, that that's rongo whakaata's, that's our whare. Yeah, look, I'm torn. I'm torn with the restoration, you know, I want it to happen, I do, and I think it will happen if it's supposed to happen. It's kind of fatalist way of thinking, I guess, but yeah, I mean, I want it to happen because I want the whare to be complete. I was actually there when they were fixing Te Hau ki Tūranga up. I think it was Sotheran who was the director at the time, before Michelle, and they did explain to me what they were doing, and it was Auntie Ruth Nepe who was there with me too, and we saw the whare, they were putting rushes or manuka on top, had no roof, it was just a frame. Yeah. You know, I want it to come back, I do. But if it hurts the people, maybe it's not the right time. Yeah, well, restoration for me, it's fixing up. It's fixing up, it's putting everything back together, and, you know, it will be good because, you know, the kōrero inside the whare is a little bit mixed up. You know, you've got popo that are sitting next to other popo that they shouldn't be. And so if the restoration happens, it'll be great to have all those stories corrected. Then we can follow them easier. So yeah, I look forward to it happening. Yeah, so we had a bit of a tangi when we saw it like that. But they said that they would put everything back together as it was, and then we came back the next time, and it was lovely. It was beautiful. But how many times have they done that? That whare has been moved 3 times. You know, they put it down and then they put it up, put it down and put it up, move it to the next place, put it up. 3 times. Those are all restorations to me. Yeah, well, I don't think restoration is just about, you know, restoring the whare. I think restoration is about restoring a whole lot of things. You know, our people, our thought processes. Yeah. You know, coming from a trust, working at the trust and coming from a trust perspective, you know, one of the things that I'm always thinking about is what does a well rongo whakaata person look like? You know, and a great analogy is our whare. You know, it's kind of like the Rocky Horror Show. You know, our people are adorned with these superficial things to fit into a particular mindset or a particular view. And, you know, it's just like our whare. It's been lipsticked, it's been prettied up to be put on display to an audience. So yeah, I think the restoration will be like a washing. It'll be like a washing, be like a cleansing period. Yeah, because whare, you know, whare aren't just, you know, physical. I mean, obviously they're not. You know, they're our connector to land, they're our connector to our histories, to whenua, you know, to our stories, you know, and when I think of Te Hau ki Tūranga, you know, that's what I think of as, you know, a delineation of time and space. Yeah, it wasn't really talked about that much. Yeah, it wasn't really spoken about, but it started to be spoken about a bit more when Ngāti Porou came and they did a restoration. And Apirana Ngata, he brought some people in to work on it. And I was a little bit worried because I was wondering, why would our tipuna involved? You know, why weren't they talking about Te Hau? Where were they? Yeah, well, restoration has happened in a sense legally in that the title has been given back to sit amongst the rongo whakaata people, but I've felt this, you know, and ever since I've moved back that there's something missing. And if you sit in that whare in the dark, it's lonely. And everything around the walls is waiting. It's not waiting to be claimed because it already knows who owns or who belongs, who belongs to it, but It's that wairua that's missing. So the name, ko Te Hau ki Tūranga. Why did Raharuhi Rukupo name the whare after a rohe? It was very rare to have a whare named after a rohe. It was more common to have them named after a tupuna. So why he named it after the rohe, being Tūranga, is that he wanted us to remember all the hononga that we have amongst us. So all the popo that sit inside the whare reflect those hononga. +150 years it's been away. And some people would say, you know, that the physical aspect's being looked after. But really, has it? I don't think so. You know, part of restoration should be that. Rest. I don't know anybody who would allow the world in their house willy-nilly, unwelcomed. And it wasn't made for that. You know, Te Papa really needs to keep a close eye on our taonga, because I don't know if you read the post by a rongo whakaata uri who was very disappointed that he saw the whare left unmanned, and that there were people from the public who were going inside and they were touching it in places that it shouldn't be touched. You know, ignoring the signs and taking photos, that sort of thing. Disrespectful. So, yeah, I think we've all got our role to play. Where were our tipunas? Why weren't they speaking about Te Hau ki Tūranga? Where were our tipunas? Why weren't they speaking about Te Hau ki Tūranga? Yeah, so, you know, we need to be keeping people aware and, you know, informing people about what's happening and everything, but we adopt these systems that just aren't ours, and it just kind of stuffs things up a little bit. So it should be obvious who should be involved and who should be making the decisions. But, you know, you get this contest between each other, and yeah, it should just be high trust, you know, mana enhancing, because when you've got a mana enhancing process, you know, people are obliged to act with humility. In 2011, our friend, who's now the race relations conciliator, tried to insinuate himself into, with Minister OTS Chris Finlayson, negotiating the whare to be set back in Gisborne, at a site where, I don't know, where some people talk about it around the railway station there. And that was happening before we'd actually settled. That was really hurtful. It really was. So I think that, you know, we need to push aside other people's agendas and desires and ambitions for it, and we need to focus on what we want amongst our own. Yeah, restoration. Yep, so I think it needs to come back to the whenua. Physical restoration. Yep, again, I think that's going to require some certain people to be in the room, and those people need to be the subject experts. Some people would say that they're the experts or the voice for the whare, and I would just say, if Rukupo was alive, would he want you to be doing that mahi? So it's like, if you've got your car and it's broken, you don't take it to the bakery to get fixed. You take it to the content experts. Yeah, and if you don't have the right skills, you don't enter the tent. I mean, because, you know, you're ngāwari enough to know, no, that's not me. But, you know, it becomes challenging when we have right or wrong or contest versus mana, and, you know, it just becomes skew with, and everybody wants to be involved, anyone wants to be a part of it, and it's mostly because they're attracted to it for the wrong reasons. We have to remember all the hononga we have amongst us. We must remember all the hononga we have amongst us. So Raharuhi Rukupo had a vision. He had a vision for his people during turmoil times. You got to remember that the 1850s and 60s, they were ugly times between us and the corona, and even amongst ourselves. So he built a wharenui. He knew that we needed something to hold us all together, to remember those hononga, so we never forget who we are. Yeah, you know, who we are, yeah, it's not just about who we were in the 1800s. You know, who we are now is just as important, and we do have this little tendency to romanticise about the past as if it was somehow more significant than it is now. And I can guarantee to you that the relationships that we have now, the behaviours, you know, they were just the same back in the 1800s, if not beforehand. So, anyway, despite all the personality differences, you know, and that's not something new for Ngāti Kaipoho. You know, we've always been known as tētahi iwi, kaha ki te whawhai. We have that temperament issue, but we need to put that to the side and more focus on more about te kōtahitanga a tūrahiri. Then I think we can move forward on that. RIT, it's critical that they hold the leadership and the governance roles, but that's only by default. So we need to find a way to embrace that. The hapu and whānau associated who belong to the whare. Rukupo, I never knew of any successes that he had, so it can't really fall on any individual. It has to be held amongst all of us. You know, we get trapped in these, just these mind traps where we ask, how was the whakapapa exactly? You know, what was it? And how did the whare look exactly? It doesn't matter. Because, you know, knowledge is dynamic, and as long as the uri are working it, then that's the right thing. Because we, in my view, just need to get our best minds and our best creatives together to whakatika the whare, but also to make a statement of who we are. Because who we are isn't about a moment in time. It's a waste of time having anybody involved who does not understand the kōrero of the whare, who then cannot speak maturely from the perspective of the whare. So that's what I think. Point being is that our sense of identity is actually the centre of how we speak to who we are. So it depends if you're taking a historical view or not, but if we go back to the function of the whare as a delineation of time and space, you know, a delineation, and not to delineate in order to segregate. So, say, you know, you speak from the point of rukupo or the point of taharako. Where is your perspective coming from? You know, is that you? Is that your whānau? Is that your hapu? As a carver, I think one of the things that we need is a group, just a small group, you know. It would be kind of like he taumataka ka tarahai. You know, just a small group of men, koro who are adept at speaking on our pai. You know, and they have to be given the mandate to make decisions on behalf of us. They need to sit outside of RRT and be given that mandate. You know, people like Pāpati, Pāpataha, you know, ones that really know the whakapapa of the whare and the kōrero inside out. Yeah, it's a struggle having weighty titles, you know, because sometimes that can be a bit problematic, you know, to the way that we conceive of the project. But let's just say, for argument's sake, let's just say you've got your tohunga whakairo, your head carver. Now he needs to be able to choose the other carvers that he's working with, because at the end of the day, the accountability rests on him. You know, it's not going to rest on a project manager. It's going to rest and come back all on him. So, yeah, and I think we just have this little habit, because the principle that should underpin everything is that the whare is an indivisible whole, inextricable of all its relationships. And I'm talking about art forms as well. You know, we've got a tendency to place carving above the other art forms, and I don't think historically that is what happens. I think that's a system of government investment in carving since the 1920s, since Ngata's time. So, you know, we have to wānanga so that we can see those common rhythms that sit through all the art forms. So, for example, gender roles too, you know, who assigned gender roles? You know, with weaving, for example, it wasn't just the women. You know, I find it, you know, we just kick ourselves in the foot, don't we, when we sort of go, you know, oh, it's just the school children and the women that can weave. Yeah. Anyway, I just think if we can wānanga, let's say we wānanga on rangi, and we say, what is rangi in a song? And then what is that tune in relationship to whakairo? You know, that sort of thing, so we can see the common rhythm that will thread through everything. What is that rhythm? It was lovely to learn all the names of the popo in the whare, and to know that each popo has a rerekē above it that is its child or a moko. That was my journey with Te Hau ki Tūranga. I learned all the names. I can sit inside the whare and I recognise every popo. And that was something that I didn't know. Yeah. There are some missing, but in time, we will find them. We will find them. Yeah. The rua whetū is something that Te Hau ki Tūranga opened up to me. It was like a key, and rua whetū is such a beautiful kupu in its own right, and it's the place where the popo meets the rerekē, and this whakairo that, your rua is your fontanelle. It's the storage pit, and inside is the whetū, or the light. Yeah, so it's that process of spiritual enlightenment, and you can only get it through spiritual sustenance, and its representation is here tangibly. So what are you going to do? And are you going to take the whare back to what it was in 1867? What are you going to do? Are you going to pedo everything that's been worked on? What are you going to do? You're going to take it back to the skeleton that it was originally? Or are you going to make it into something that you call Te Hau ki Tūranga, but it's in essence something that the contemporary disciples want it to be? Yeah, so where do I think it should end up? In my heart, I think it should come home. Whereabouts? In my heart again, I think it should come back to Manituke, around Ora Kaiapu. My head thinks it could be used as a strategy or a flagship to show all our surrounding neighbours and everyone that, we're not just out at a place called Manituke, we actually belong to the whole place. So, yeah, I do think it needs to rest though. I don't think we want to use it and put it on display like it has been or treat it like an asset. And I just think of that movie Taken. You've got human trafficking that's happening in there, you've got humans being forced to do things that they don't want to do. It's the same with our whare. But, if we end up treating it that way, then we're just as bad ourselves. Yeah. My relationship with Te Hau, it wasn't as close when I lived in Gisborne, but now living here and as tauta here, it just gives me a sense of belonging because it's here. And I feel close to it. I remember going back up, and it was the day we were doing the signing, and there was these forms that we had to fill out, and I had to put what marae that I belonged to, and I wanted to put my name to Te Hau ki Tūranga. I felt moke for it. But when I looked down on the form, it wasn't on there. And, we as rongo whakaata, we talk about it, but sometimes we forget about it. And, yeah, so that's my relationship with Te Hau, and it's the nearest taonga for me that I can grab hold of. Well, we just have to ask the questions, because for me, I want it to come home. That's my personal opinion. But we need to start asking the questions, because if we're going to start moving it and fiddling around with its parts, that needs to be done at home. And home is te arai. Yeah, look, you know, we need bureaucracy. Now, I don't mean that in the bad sense of the word. I really don't. I do think we need accountability, systems, procedures, you know, and I kind of like to think of them as like a corporate firewall, you know, something that protects the inner sanctum and keeps it safe. So, yeah, I think, you know, for example, you could have a project manager, you know, but they would sit outward facing. And that corporate firewall, it needs to be able to propel outwards. The project manager would take care of things like money, you know, time frames, you know, things that aren't actually really important, but are necessary. Those things would be able to be kept outside of the inner sanctum to keep that part safe. You know, things are changing. When we started to get interested into Te Hau ki Tūranga, it was a bit later, and I just think, how long does that interest really last? You know, and to look after a taonga like that, it needs a lot of awhi. And I'm just thinking about our mokopuna and the future for them. It's tough going ahead for them. They've got a lot of tough times coming. So in my heart, I would love to see it come home, but in the end, I think it should stay at Te Papa, because it's warm there. You can see it. And that can be the draw card for us to come down and awhi it. You know, we will always come down and awhi it so long as it's there. For me, if it hurts us or it hurts the whare to come home, then maybe it's not the right time. What will restoration require? Acceptance. Acceptance that we can't take back all the mamai that was caused by the crown. Someone said to me back in 2013 that the whare had lost its mauri. And I responded that the mauri sits inside all the people that belong to it. So with that, and with this idea of mataoratia, the whare just needs to be given back the spirit that it had. The whare just needs to be given back the spirit that it had.
Ko te arai te ā-waha, rongo whakata tangata, he hiri ngā mahara, he manawa maurea, whakahere I ngā hapu, whakakotahi I ngā whānau, ki te puna o te aroha, te pono me te tika. Tūmaira te taumata tipua manawaru, ko mura mai ngā kōrero nehera I a koe. Tūmaira te taumata tipua manawaru, ko mura mai ngā kōrero nehera I a koe. He tata arunga, he roa araro, he tata arunga, he roa araro, he tata arunga, he roa araro, he tata